Imagine for a moment that you, with all the comforts of the 21st century at your fingertips, suddenly found yourself waking up in the middle of a medieval village. The air is colder and harsher than you are used to, filled with the smoky scent of wood fires and the sharp tang of animals kept far too close to their owners' homes. The first thing you would notice is not the picturesque vision of castles and knights that stories often promise, but the sheer discomfort of it all. The ground beneath your feet is uneven and muddy. Your shoes, if you even have them, would quickly sink into the filth that covers the streets. And the clothes of the people passing by are rough, itchy, and often unwashed. You are immediately out of place, not only in appearance, but in manner, for your speech, your gestures, and even the way you stand would be foreign to them. A medieval farmer or craftsman might look at you with suspicion, wondering why your hands are so smooth, why your skin is so soft compared to theirs, hardened by years of labor and weather. The truth is that a modern human body is simply not built for this world anymore. Centuries of technological advancement and comfort have softened us in ways we rarely recognize. Even something as simple as drinking water would be a danger. In the medieval period, clean water sources were rare, and most streams and wells were contaminated with waste and bacteria that could bring a swift end to an unprepared visitor, where they might boil, ferment, or simply develop a stomach of iron after years of exposure. You would likely be bent over in agony within a day, your body unable to fight off infections it has never encountered before. The very air would be a challenge too thick with smoke from fires that burn day and night without chimneys, heavy with the smell of animals, of leather curing, of tanneries working with urine and lye, and the overwhelming stench of human life lived without proper sanitation. Clothing, too, would feel unbearable. Gone are the soft cotton blends, the breathable fabrics, the perfectly tailored shoes that cushion every step. Instead, you would be wrapped in wool, scratchy and coarse against your skin, with little to protect you from the cold winds that whip across the open fields. In summer, the weight of such garments would leave you drenched in sweat, with no relief from modern conveniences like air conditioning or even a cold shower. And speaking of showers, bathing was rare, sometimes seen with suspicion, thought to weaken the body rather than strengthen it. The rivers where you might wish to wash are polluted, icy, and dangerous. Soap is harsh, made with lye, stripping away not just dirt, but your skin's natural defenses. What you thought of as cleanliness would be impossible to maintain, and within days your body would itch with grime, your hair greasy, your nails blackened with soil. Then comes the matter of food. The abundance and variety of modern life has spoiled us beyond imagination compared to what a medieval person ate daily. There are no supermarkets, no restaurants, no refrigerators humming quietly in the background. Instead, meals are simple and repetitive. Thick, heavy bread made from coarse grains, often mixed with whatever filler could be found. Thin pottage, a kind of watery stew flavored with root vegetables, sometimes thickened with peas or beans. Meat, if it came at all, was rare for the common folk, often tough and salted to last through the seasons. Spices, which we take for granted, were treasures worth their weight in gold. far too expensive for a peasant to ever dream of tasting. Even the wealthier classes, who could afford more variety, would find their meals bland compared to what you know today, where salt, sugar, coffee, chocolate, and countless fruits and vegetables from around the world are just a short trip away. A modern palate would find medieval food monotonous, and the stomach would protest at the heaviness, the lack of balance, and the occasional surprise of rancid or spoiled ingredients hidden within. Beyond survival, there is the matter of health. Your body, used to clean hospitals, vaccinations, antibiotics, and pain relief, would be left defenseless against even the simplest wound. A small cut from a rusty tool could become infected quickly and without proper medicine. Something as minor as a splinter could escalate into a life-threatening condition. Dentistry was brutal or non-existent, with rotting teeth pulled crudely and infections left untreated. A headache, which you might now solve with a quick tablet of pain relief, could linger endlessly, worsened by dehydration, smoke, and constant noise. Diseases we no longer fear, like smallpox, typhoid, and the plague, lurked in every corner, and even the common cold could linger for weeks. Imagine lying in a straw bed, coughing through the night, without comfort, without medicine, and without anyone to ease your pain. The environment itself would test you. Winters were brutal, with homes offering little insulation, fires smoking out the rooms rather than warming them properly, and clothes barely enough to fight the chill. In summer, the sun bore down mercilessly, with no reprieve from the labor expected of every able body. For a modern person used to leisure, to sitting behind desks or traveling in cars, the demand of constant physical effort would be crushing. Fields had to be tilled, water hauled from distant wells, animals cared for with chopped, repairs made to tools, roofs, fences, and clothes. There was no rest except in the dark of night, and even then the night was filled with noises, dogs barking, people groaning in sleep, rats scurrying through the straw. Privacy as we know it did not exist. Families often lived together in one room, sharing their space with their animals to keep them safe and warm. The idea of a quiet, comfortable bedroom would be nothing more than fantasy. And yet, despite all of this, the medieval people endured. They were hardened from birth, their bodies trained to survive in this harsh reality, their minds adapted to the limitations of their world. They did not crave electricity, for they had never known it. They did not miss modern medicine, for they had no idea what it could do. Their lives were framed by faith, community, and tradition, giving them meaning where a modern visitor might only feel despair. But that is why you, a person born of the modern age, would struggle. The absence of comfort would gnaw at you. The endless labor would exhaust you, and the lack of medical care would threaten your survival at every turn. It is not simply a matter of strength, but of conditioning. You have been shaped by an age of convenience, where food, water, shelter, and safety are all but guaranteed. Remove those guarantees, and you are a stranger in a dangerous, alien land. The medieval world was not the romantic vision of storybooks, filled with gallant knights and fair maidens in castles. It was a place of hardship, where every day was a struggle to endure, where survival itself was an achievement. To live there, even for one day, would demand more than most modern bodies or minds could endure. And as you imagine the rough roads, the cold nights, the endless labor, and the ever-present fear of disease and injury, it becomes clear why a modern human, stripped of their comforts, would not last long. The medieval world was a different planet, and though it shaped the history that led us here, it is no longer a place we could truly call home. If somehow you manage to push through those first harsh hours in the medieval world, you would soon begin to notice that time itself moves differently there. In the modern age, we are surrounded by clocks, by schedules, by digital reminders that shape every hour of our day. In the medieval village, there is no such certainty. The sun governs all, and the toll of church bells becomes the only rhythm people know. You would find yourself waking with the first light of dawn, not because you wished to, but because life demanded it. Roosters crow, animals stir, and the village begins to hum with the clatter of wooden tools and the muffled calls of neighbors. The darkness of night, which in our world is softened by glowing lamps and screens, would descend like a heavy curtain once the sun dips below the horizon. With no electricity, no artificial light, but the flicker of tallow candles or smoky lamps, the world becomes unfamiliar and frightening. For you, used to glowing cities and streets that never sleep, this sudden plunge into true darkness would be overwhelming. Your mind would wander uneasily, for night in the medieval world was not quiet safety. Shadows concealed dangers, from wild animals that roamed the forests to thieves and bandits, who used the cover of darkness to strike. Even inside the home, the absence of light brings a vulnerability that we, with our locked doors and lit hallways, barely understand anymore. Every creak of wood, every stir of the wind against the thatch roof might set your heart racing, as your imagination fills the void with fears. It was in this very atmosphere that stories of witches, demons, and restless spirits thrived. The people of the time lived side by side with these beliefs, and you too would be swept into their fear. Where we now have explanations, science, medicine, psychology, they had only superstition and faith. And so the night was filled with whispers, charms to ward off evil, prayers muttered under breath, and a cautious acceptance that the unseen was always near. The way people related to each other would also unsettle you. In modern society, we prize individuality, privacy, and the right to live as one wishes. In the medieval world, community was everything. You belonged to your village, to your family, to your lord, to your church. Every action was seen, judged, and gossiped about. For there were no secrets when life was lived so openly. Houses were small, rooms shared, conversations overheard. A modern visitor might crave solitude, but solitude was almost impossible to find. Even the wealthy, with larger homes and fortified castles, had servants and attendants constantly nearby. Silence was rare, and privacy almost non-existent. For a modern human, accustomed to shutting a door, slipping on headphones, and being alone with their thoughts, the constant presence of others would soon become suffocating. And then there is the law. In our world we may complain about rules and regulations, but in truth they provide us with a shield of fairness. In the medieval world, justice was often brutal, arbitrary, and shaped by status. If you were accused of wrongdoing, your fate might depend less on truth and more on your standing in the community. The whims of a local lord, or the outcome of a trial by ordeal where innocence was tested not with evidence, but by plunging your arm into boiling water, or being bound and cast into a river to see if you floated. Imagine standing before such judgment with no lawyer, no rights, no presumption of innocence. The fear alone would be enough to break most modern spirit. Religion, too, would weigh heavily upon you, where today belief is often personal, optional, or diverse. In the medieval period, it was inescapable. The church dominated daily life. Bells rang to call you to worship. Priests oversaw marriages, births, and deaths, and the very calendar revolved around saints' days and holy festivals. Doubt was dangerous, for disbelief could lead to ostracism or worse. And even if you did not share the faith of the people around you, you would have no choice but to conform, kneeling with the others, repeating the prayers, and joining in rituals that bound the community together. A modern person, with their broad access to knowledge and freedom of choice, might find this constant weight of religion exhausting, even frightening. Yet, to the medieval mind, it was a source of comfort, a framework that gave meaning to the hardships of life. Work never ceased. You might hope for a day of rest, a chance to breathe, but the demands of survival left little room for leisure. While Sundays were often devoted to church and moments of festivity, the 6 days that followed were consumed by labor. Fields needed plowing, seeds planting, and harvests gathering, all without the aid of machinery. Tools were simple, relying on muscle and patience. In towns, tradesmen worked endlessly, hammering metal, shaping wood, brewing ale, tanning hides. Children joined in from an early age, their small hands useful for tasks that adults could not manage. For you, raised in a world where children are shielded from work and given time to play, this would be shocking. And yet, without their contribution, families would starve. The sounds of a medieval settlement would be unlike anything you know. Instead of the hum of cars and the buzz of electricity, there is the constant bleating of sheep, the braying of donkeys, the pounding of blacksmiths' hammers, the cries of vendors in the market, and the unending chatter of voices carried on the wind. Music, too, is present, but it is not the polished recordings of orchestras and studios. It is raw, simple, played on flutes, lutes, and drums, sung by voices untrained yet powerful. These sounds fill the air, carrying with them joy, sorrow, and the rhythm of daily life. To a modern ear, they would feel haunting, unfamiliar, yet strangely alive. Health, once again, cannot be forgotten. The illnesses of the medieval world were not just physical, but also mental. Imagine the toll of constant hunger, the gnawing ache of malnutrition, the weary fatigue of endless work. Depression, anxiety, and despair were common, though rarely spoken of in the way we understand them today. Instead, they were often attributed to sin, to spirits, or to imbalance of humors within the body. A doctor's remedies might involve bloodletting, leeches, or strange mixtures of herbs that could do more harm than good. There were no comforts of therapy, no safe spaces to talk, no understanding of the complex workings of the mind. You would be alone with your thoughts, forced to carry them in silence, while those around you urged faith, penance, or stoic endurance. And let us not forget the broader world beyond the village walls. The roads are dangerous, filled with thieves and mercenaries. Travel is slow, often by foot or by horse, and each journey carries risk. Maps are rare, and knowledge of distant lands is clouded by rumor and myth. For you, used to plains that cross continents in hours, the very thought of walking for days to reach the next town would be daunting. Even letters, our simplest form of communication, were rare and precious, for literacy itself was limited to the few. To send a message could take weeks, with no guarantee it would ever arrive. The isolation of such a world would weigh heavily on you, cutting you off from the instant connections you take for granted. And yet, there is another truth here. While a modern human would struggle terribly in this medieval setting, the people who lived there were not simply suffering endlessly. They found joy in the small things, in festivals that brought color to gray lives, in the laughter shared at market days, in the songs sung together at harvest, in the stories told by firelight when work was done. They endured, but they also lived, and their world, harsh though it was, had its own kind of beauty. To walk through a medieval meadow at dawn, to hear the church bells echo across the hills, to share a simple meal with others. It was a life of hardship, but also of connection, of community, of deep reliance on one another. For you, however, it would all be too much. The aching body, the constant hunger, the fear of sickness, the weight of religion, the absence of comfort, the darkness of night, the lack of privacy. The endless labor these would break you down swiftly. Within a day your body would crave the world you left behind. Clean water, safe food, soft clothing, medicine, warmth, privacy, and safety. These are the invisible luxuries that define the modern age, and without them we are far more fragile than we imagine. The medieval world reveals this truth with every detail, showing us just how far humanity has come, and just how dependent we are on the progress of our ancestors. If you were to step further into the medieval world, you would quickly learn that even the smallest tasks, the ones you hardly notice in modern life, become ordeals that consume energy and time. Take water, for instance. In our world, we turn a handle and it flows clean, endless, and safe. In the medieval village, water must be fetched, drawn by hand from a well or carried from a distant stream. The buckets are heavy, the path uneven, and each trip leaves shoulders aching and hands raw. And this is not a task done once, but repeated again and again, for water is needed constantly for drinking, for cooking, for animals, for cleaning. You would find yourself exhausted by midday, sweat dripping, legs trembling. Yet the day's work would only just have begun. And what of warmth in winter the fire is your lifeline. But firewood does not appear stacked neatly outside your door. It must be gathered, chopped, dried, and stored, each piece dragged from the forest with aching arms. A modern person, used to the quiet hum of central heating, would shiver and curse the bitter cold long before the flames caught. Even inside, the fire provides little comfort. Smoke seeps into your lungs, your eyes sting, and the heat never spreads evenly. One side of your body burns while the other freezes. Blankets, too, are coarse, heavy, and often damp. You would crawl into bed at night, wrapped in scratchy wool, teeth chattering as frost creeps across the room, your breath visible in the dim light of the dying embers. Food preparation is another ordeal that would humble you. In our age, a meal might take minutes, with ingredients gathered from a store or delivered to your door. In the medieval world, every meal is the product of endless labor. Grains must be ground by hand, vegetables pulled from the earth, firewood gathered to boil water, pots scrubbed with sand and ash. The bread, dense and rough, must rise slowly, baked in communal ovens that serve the whole village. And when it is done, the taste would hardly satisfy your modern tongue. There is no sugar to sweeten, no coffee to warm you, no chocolate, no soft fruits from across the seas. Instead, you are left with heaviness, thick porridge, salted fish, bitter ale, and the sharp tang of cheese left to age far too long. Your body, accustomed to variety and nutrition, would soon cry out for vitamins it cannot find, for flavors it misses desperately. You might even grow weak, not from lack of food, but from the lack of balance within it. Cleanliness is another silent torment. You wake with dirt already under your nails, for the bedding is straw filled with dust, mites and crawling things you cannot keep away. You walk barefoot across floors coated with ash, mud, and the droppings of chickens kept inside for safety. You go to wash, only to find icy water that stings your skin and numbs your hands. There is no soap as you know it, only rough lye or harsh mixtures that strip the skin raw. And so most do not wash often, their bodies carrying the heavy scent of sweat, of animals, of earth. For you, raised in an age where a warm shower is daily ritual, this constant grime would be unbearable. Within hours you would long for the comfort of water cascading over your skin, for the softness of clean clothes against your body. But there is none to be had. Noise, too, would weigh on you, though in a different way. Our world is loud with engines, devices, and endless chatter, but it is a controlled noise, a familiar hum. The medieval world's noise is different, closer, more intrusive. The clanging of iron at the blacksmith's forge, the barking of dogs that never cease, the cries of animals slaughtered for food, the wails of infants in cramped homes, the shouted bargains of market stalls. There is no silence, but also no escape. For you, used to shutting a door, slipping into headphones, or retreating to solitude, the constant intrusion would gnaw at your nerves until you could hardly think. The dangers of medicine, or rather, the lack of it, loom constantly. Imagine cutting your hand on a jagged tool. Today, you might rinse it under clean water, apply antiseptic, and cover it with a bandage. In the medieval world, the wound festers, flies gather, dirt clings, and infection takes hold. A healer arrives, not with antibiotics, but with a poultice of herbs, or perhaps a heated blade to cauterize the flesh. The pain is searing, the effectiveness uncertain, and the risk of death very real. Even something as ordinary as a toothache becomes a torment that can drive a person to madness. Without dentists, teeth rot unchecked, and when the pain grows unbearable, the only solution is to yank the tooth with crude instruments, leaving blood, infection, and agony behind. You would not last long in such conditions, for your body is not prepared to endure pain without relief, nor illness without remedy. The social order, too, would crush you. In our world we speak freely, criticize openly, and challenge authority without fear of death. In the medieval village, words can cost your life. To mock a noble is to invite punishment. To question the church is to invite suspicion. And to step outside the rigid structure of society is to risk exile or worse. You would be forced to bite your tongue, to hide your modern thoughts, to bow and kneel when commanded. Freedom of speech, that invisible air we breathe today, does not exist here. For a modern person, accustomed to freedom, this suffocation of the mind would be almost unbearable. Even leisure is not what you know. Entertainment is rare, simple, and fleeting. There are no books for you to browse. 4 books are treasures chained to monastery shelves, written by hand, accessible only to the few who can read. There are no movies, no games, no music on demand. There is storytelling. There are songs sung together. There are festivals of dance and color. But these are brief, scattered, and shared with all. Your craving for personal entertainment, for tailored pleasure at your fingertips, would gnaw at you constantly. In the long, dark nights, when nothing but the wind and the creak of wood surrounds you, boredom would turn into despair. The truth is, every moment of medieval life is an obstacle course for the modern person. Every sip of water a gamble, every meal a struggle, every step a reminder of discomfort. The modern body, cushioned by progress, cannot adapt quickly enough. The immune system falters, the muscles ache, the mind buckles under the weight of fear, discomfort, and unending labor. You might last a few hours, you might stumble through a single day, but already you would feel yourself unraveling, longing for the soft pillow, the hot bath, the warm meal waiting for you in the world you left behind. And that longing, more than anything, would break you. For the medieval people did not long for such things. They had never known them. Their suffering was their normal, their hardship their rhythm. They endured because they had no comparison. But you, with the memory of comfort burned into your mind, would never be free of it. You would crave electricity when the candles sputter. You would crave medicine when your body aches. You would crave sweetness when the bread grows stale. And you would crave safety when the night grows dark. That craving would eat at you like hunger itself, until the medieval world felt less like a place to live and more like a prison from which you could never escape. If somehow you still pressed on through the filth and discomfort, if you gritted your teeth and told yourself that you would survive, you would soon face challenges even more subtle, the ones that reach into the very core of your modern identity. You live in a world of constant choice, of individual freedom, where you can shape your life in countless directions. In the medieval world, choice is an illusion. You are born into your place, and you remain there. A peasant child grows into a peasant adult, bound to the land, to the Lord, to the endless routine of toil. You cannot simply decide to change careers, to travel far, to escape your destiny. For a modern human, this lack of agency would feel like suffocation. The knowledge that your entire life is already mapped out before you could be unbearable, a cage around your thoughts. Even time itself is heavy in this world. For you, a single day is filled with options. You can speak to people across the planet, watch stories unfold in glowing images, learn vast amounts at the press of a button. In the medieval village, time drags. A day is filled with work that barely changes, with duties that repeat endlessly, the same tasks, day after day, with little variation and almost no escape. You would feel the weight of monotony like chains around your neck, where your modern mind craves stimulation. Here there is only repetition. The boredom would eat away at you, a slow erosion of the spirit. And then, of course, there is violence. Our modern world is not free of it, but it is distant, buffered by laws, by order, by the state. In the medieval world, violence is near, personal, and raw. A drunken brawl in the street could leave bones broken. A thief caught in the market might be beaten or even hanged on the spot. Justice is not gentle. It is immediate and brutal, carried out before your eyes. Imagine stumbling upon such a scene. The blood, the cries, the indifference of the crowd. For them, this is normal. For you, it is nightmare. And worse still, violence is not just punishment. It is war, ever looming. Lords feuding, villages raided, soldiers marching through fields that are trampled, burned, and stripped bare. You, with no training, no weapon, and no armor, would be utterly helpless. Even the environment itself conspires against you. The roads are not roads. As you know them, they are mud tracks, churned by carts, washed away by rains, blocked by fallen trees. To walk a few miles leaves your feet blistered, your body sore. The weather, too, is harsher than you imagine. Without forecasts, without protection, storms strike suddenly, winds tear through thatched roofs, floods ruin crops, and droughts starve entire regions. In your world, disasters bring rescue teams, aid, and organization. In the medieval world, disaster simply means hunger, loss, and despair. To endure even one stormy night in such conditions would rattle your nerves, for there is no safety net, no one to call for help, no emergency number to dial. The weight of mortality presses down constantly here. In your age, you expect to live decades, to grow old, to watch the slow passing of time. In the medieval world, death lurks at every corner. Children do not survive infancy in numbers that would horrify you. Women die in childbirth with tragic regularity, and men fall to accidents, disease, or violence before their hair turns grey. You would be confronted by corpses, by funerals, by grief woven into the fabric of everyday life. For a modern person, shielded from the sight of death, this would be shocking beyond measure. It is not hidden. Here it is inescapable, a reminder each day that life is fragile and short. Your body itself would betray you. Think of the blisters that form after a single day of hard work. Think of the aching back after lifting wood, the sore muscles after ploughing a field, the sunburn from hours under the open sky. Medieval people were trained from birth to endure this. Their muscles grew hard, their skin thickened, their bodies adapted. Yours has not. Within hours you would feel pain, within a day exhaustion, within 2 days perhaps collapse. Even sleep would not bring relief, for the beds are not soft, the air is cold, and the noise of the village never quite stops. Rest is shallow, broken, and never enough, and still the mind suffers too. A modern human is accustomed to control, to safety, to the ability to shape their environment. In the medieval world, you have no control. You cannot guarantee your safety. You cannot control your food supply. You cannot even keep yourself clean. This helplessness gnaws at the mind. Anxiety rises. Fear takes hold. Despair settles in. Your mind, used to the constant stimulation of screens, of conversation, of knowledge at your fingertips, is suddenly stripped bare. You are left only with your thoughts, and those thoughts are filled with longing for the bed you left behind, for the warmth of modern light, for the world you can never return to. It is not simply that you are weaker or softer than the people of that time. It is that you are different, shaped by an entirely different world. They were forged in hardship from birth, while you were cradled in comfort. They did not miss what they never had, but you would feel its absence at every moment. Their endurance came from necessity. Yours has never been tested in such a way. The medieval world is not a place you can simply visit and adapt to. It is a world that would overwhelm, crush, and consume you, stripping away the layers of modernity until all that remains is a fragile body, a restless mind, and a desperate longing for escape. So when we say that a modern person would not last a day in medieval times, it is not an exaggeration. It is the truth revealed in every detail, in the water that poisons, in the food that fails to nourish, in the cold that seeps into your bones, in the labor that shatters your body, in the sickness that strikes without warning, in the darkness that presses too close. It is a truth that shows us just how far humanity has come, and just how much we owe to the slow, painful progress of the centuries between then and now. If you thought you could simply endure the hardships with determination, you would soon discover that determination alone is not enough. The medieval world tests you in ways you could never prepare for, because the very foundation of what you believe to be normal is absent. Even the act of waking up is disorienting. There is no gentle alarm, no glowing light of a phone, no hum of electricity. Instead, you awaken to the chill of a draught creeping through cracks in the walls, to the muffled groans of others sleeping beside you, to the restless shuffle of animals kept indoors. The bedding scratches against your skin, your body stiff from a mattress stuffed with straw that has already begun to rot. You open your eyes not to light, but to dim grayness, smoke curling from last night's fire, and the realization that another day of toil has begun. The pace of life itself would crush you. In the modern world, we can pause, rest, even escape into entertainment or leisure whenever we wish. But here, rest is a luxury almost unknown. The moment the sun rises, work begins. If you are a peasant, you rise to tend animals, haul water, prepare meals, and set out to the fields. If you are an apprentice in a town, you rise to the relentless rhythm of your master's orders, working with raw hands at tasks that bruise and blister. If you are a woman of the household, your day is consumed by labor as endless as the sky spinning, weaving, cooking, cleaning, tending, and preparing, and none of it is optional. To fail in your duties is not to lose a job or a wage. It is to risk hunger, punishment, or the disapproval of the entire community. The pressure is constant, unrelenting, and there is no pause button, no weekend of relief, no concept of retirement. For you, used to moments of rest scattered freely through the day, the weight of endless duty would be unbearable. The medieval calendar offers some relief in the form of holy days and festivals, but these too bring their own challenges. Festivals mean crowds, noise, chaos, and indulgence in food and drink that your stomach, already weakened, might not handle. The holy days mean long hours in church, kneeling on cold stone floors, listening to sermons in a language you may not even understand. You would struggle not only with the physical strain, but with the mental exhaustion of participating in rituals and routines that feel alien, imposed upon you without question or choice. And then there is the market, that bustling heart of a town or village. To your modern eyes, it may seem lively, colorful, and exciting, but step closer and you will see the truth. Stalls are crowded, voices shouting, animals bleating, smells overwhelming. Fresh food is rare, much of it already spoiling in the open air. The butcher's stalls drip with blood, flies swarm over slabs of meat. The fishmongers offer catches already turning foul in the sun. You reach for fruit only to find it bruised, half-rotten. The goods are not wrapped, not sterilized, not inspected. To eat from such a market is to gamble with your health every time. And yet, this is the lifeblood of the medieval community, the only way to survive. Travel, too, would strip away your illusions. You might imagine setting out to explore the countryside, to visit a castle, to see the world beyond the village. But the moment you leave the familiar, danger closes in. The roads are little more than muddy tracks, twisting through forests filled with wolves, bears, and bandits. Bridges are crude, crossing swollen rivers at great risk. Inns, where they exist, are dirty, crowded, and often dangerous themselves. You would walk for hours, blistered and exhausted, only to reach the next village, and find suspicion in the eyes of strangers who see you as an outsider. There are no maps to guide you, no signs, no guarantees of safety. For someone used to trains, cars, and planes, this slowness and uncertainty would be maddening. Even your sense of health and diet would betray you. Imagine craving fruit, only to find that in winter there is none to be had. Imagine longing for a fresh salad, but discovering that greens are rare and often unsafe. Your body, deprived of vitamins, would weaken slowly. Scurvy, rickets, and other diseases of deficiency would creep upon you silently. The bread, heavy with coarse grains, wears down your teeth, already aching without modern care. The salted meat leaves you thirsty, but the water makes you ill. Even ale, that common drink of the medieval world, is weak, sour, and brewed not for taste, but for survival. And your stomach may rebel at its unfamiliar fermentation. The psychological strain deepens with each passing hour. In your modern world, when darkness falls, you can fill the silence with music, with stories, with moving images. In the medieval world, darkness is nearly absolute. Candles are expensive, firewood precious, and so the night is filled with shadows. The wind howls, timbers creak, rats scurry across the floor. You lie awake, listening to every sound, your mind conjuring fears. And when you do sleep, it is not in silence, but surrounded by others. Every cough, every stir, every snore breaking the fragile peace. Privacy, that unseen luxury you take for granted, is gone. Your thoughts are never entirely your own, your space always shared. It wears you down quietly, steadily, until you long not just for light and warmth, but for a simple moment alone. The people around you, hardened by life, might seem distant, even cruel. They laugh at suffering, for it is their constant companion. They do not flinch at sights that would haunt you. A broken bone left to set badly, a child sick with fever, an old man coughing his last breathful. Of these are daily truths to them. For you, they are tragedies, overwhelming and unbearable. The weight of so much visible suffering, unsoftened by medicine or mercy, would darken your spirit until despair became as heavy as hunger. It is not that the medieval world is without beauty. There is the glow of sunlight on stone walls, the sound of bells across the fields, the laughter of children playing in dust, the simple comfort of bread shared in company. But these moments of light are thin threads woven into a fabric of hardship. For you, used to beauty layered over every part of life, they would not be enough to sustain you. The contrast between what you know and what you endure would be too sharp, the absence of comfort too vast. And so, even if your body somehow managed to endure the first day, even if your hands blistered but did not break, even if your stomach twisted but did not collapse, even if you pressed on with sheer willpower, it is your mind that would fail you. The weight of discomfort, of filth, of hunger, of fear, of monotony, of helplessness would crush your spirit. You would not simply struggle, would despair. And despair is the true reason why a modern human could not last a day in the medieval world. It is not only the body that falters, but the mind. when stripped of everything it has always relied upon. The longer you remain in this alien world, the more the small things begin to weigh on you. Those quiet details that slip past notice until they pile into a mountain of discomfort. The smell, for instance, becomes a companion you cannot escape. In the modern age, we wash constantly. We perfume our bodies. We scrub our clothes. We clean our streets. In the medieval village, the air is never fresh. It is a mixture of smoke from countless hearths, of damp hay, of manure piled in corners, of sweat-soaked garments never truly clean, of tanneries boiling hides, of fish spoiling on wooden stalls. At first you might wrinkle your nose, cover your mouth, hope it fades, but it does not fade. It clings to everything, saturating your hair, your clothes, your skin itself. Within hours, you realize there is no escape from the stench, no breath of clean air, no moment of relief. Even the churches, those sanctuaries of stone and prayer, are thick with wax, smoke, and the press of unwashed bodies. The very air which you never think of in your world becomes an enemy here. And then your ears, to find no rest. You are used to choosing what you hear, to slipping into music, to soft hums of machines that blend into background comfort. In the medieval world, the noise is constant, uncontrolled, and always close. The bray of donkeys in the morning, the ring of iron on anvils, the shouts of children in the lanes, the clatter of pots, the arguments of neighbors that cannot be hidden by thin walls of wattle and daub. Dogs bark into the night. Roosters crow before the sun rises. Voices carry without care for privacy. You might long for silence, for the chance to close a door and let the world slip away. But silence does not exist here. Even the forests, when you flee to them, are filled with the snap of branches, the howl of wolves, the call of owls. Silence, that invisible balm of the modern world, is a luxury the medieval world does not provide. The ground itself resists you. Roads are mud, churned by carts and horses, slick after rains, frozen in winter, cracked in summer. Your shoes, if you still have them, wear through quickly, for they are not cushioned or reinforced, but little more than stitched leather. Each step bruises your feet. Each journey leaves you limping. You try to sit to rest, but there are no benches waiting, no smooth pavements. You sink into dirt, lean against rough wood, always surrounded by the unevenness of a world not designed for comfort. Your body protests constantly, aching for the hidden blessings of chairs, of flooring, of cushions, of simple ease. And then there are the insects. In your age, they are nuisances to be swatted, kept at bay with screens and sprays. Here they rule. Flies gather at every table. Mosquitoes bite at dusk. Lice crawl through bedding. Fleas leap from straw to skin. They are inescapable, endless, and they carry more than annoyance. They carry disease. You scratch at bites until they bleed. You shake out your clothing only to find them infested again. You lie awake at night as tiny feet crawl across your skin. In the modern world, pests are a problem solved with chemicals and hygiene. In the medieval world, they are a constant reminder that the world is not yours to control. Illness arrives quickly in such conditions. Perhaps a cough begins, simple at first, a tickle in the throat. In your world, it would be ignored, treated with rest, medicine, reassurance. Here, the cough grows deep, rattling in your chest, for there is no medicine to ease it, no doctor to prescribe antibiotics, no hospital to catch you when you fall. The people around you accept it without surprise, for sickness is their companion too. Children waste away from fevers. Old men bend double with pain. Women pale and thin with lingering ailments. You, used to being healed, realize now that sickness is not something to fight, but something to endure, and often something to die from. The fear of this truth seeps into you slowly, until every ache feels like a threat, every shiver like the start of an ending. You might think to cling to companionship, to lean on others for comfort. But here, people are not trained to soothe with words, not raised to offer emotional ease. Their lives are too hard for such luxuries. They will share bread with you. They will work beside you. They will laugh at festivals and sing at harvest. But when you falter, when your spirit cracks, they will not know how to lift you. Their comfort lies in faith, in rituals, in resignation to suffering. For you who has always had someone to listen, to reassure, to distract, the lack of that emotional net would be another blow. Loneliness presses in not only when you are alone, but when you are surrounded by people who cannot understand the weight you carry. And still, the day goes on. The sun rises high, beating down mercilessly. You sweat, your body aches, your mouth dries, but there is no pause. The fields demand work, the animals demand care, the household demands labor. To stop is to fall behind, to risk hunger, to court punishment. By evening, your body is spent, your hands blistered, your back screaming. You long for the comfort of a meal, of rest, of warmth. Instead, you are met with another bowl of pottage, another slab of bread, another drink of sour ale. You eat not with pleasure, but with necessity, forcing it down despite the monotony, despite the heaviness. Your stomach churns, longing for freshness, for sweetness, for anything beyond this endless repetition. When night comes, you imagine release. But sleep in the medieval world is no gift. You lie in straw that scratches and shifts beneath you, in air heavy with smoke and sweat, in darkness alive with sound. Rats scurry near, gnawing at crumbs. Fleas bite at your skin. The cold creeps in despite the heavy wool, your body curling tighter, your teeth chattering. And when at last exhaustion drags you into slumber, it is broken, restless, filled with strange dreams. You wake often, coughing from smoke, shivering from chill, startled by noises outside. Morning does not refresh you, it simply arrives again, pulling you into another cycle of labor and survival. This is why a modern person cannot last, not because of one great danger, but because of the endless accumulation of small ones. The stench, the noise, the filth, the pests, the hunger, the pain, the monotony, the fear. Alone, each might be endured. Together, they erode the body and soul until nothing remains but the desperate wish to return to the world you left behind. A world of warmth, of safety, of comfort so constant you never thought to notice it. Pure, stripped of it all, you realize that every moment of your modern life was a luxury beyond imagining. And that realization, more than the cold, more than the hunger, more than the pain, is what breaks you. For once you have known comfort, you cannot endure its absence. And the medieval world, for all its resilience and raw beauty, is a world where comfort does not exist. Imagine again that first morning in the medieval world. You wake not because you have chosen to, not because an alarm set at your convenience gently buzzes you into consciousness, but because the noise of life around you gives you no choice. The rooster's crow slices the night away long before the sun truly rises. Neighbors clatter about, voices carrying easily through thin walls. And somewhere outside a cart rumbles across uneven ground, its wheels squeaking, its driver shouting at the stubborn mule that drags it along. Your body is stiff before the day even begins, every joint sore from lying on straw stuffed into sacks that shift beneath you, poking with sharp edges. There is no soft stretch, no padded mattress, no sense of having rested. You are already tired before your feet hit the floor, and then, without pause, the work begins. In the modern age, you can ease yourself into a morning with rituals, a hot shower, a cup of coffee, music, a quiet glance at your phone to gather yourself. In the medieval world, there is no such luxury. You are expected to rise at once, to move, to contribute. Perhaps you are in a village, and the animals must be fed, the fire coaxed back to life, the water fetched from the well. Or perhaps you are within a city, and the air is already thick with smoke and smell, the marketplace preparing itself for the day. Wherever you are, there is no me time, no buffer zone, no personal ritual. The world demands you give yourself to it at once, and that demand never lets up. The food, if it can be called that, comes quickly, plain and without ceremony. A hunk of bread, perhaps, coarse and heavy, its crust hard enough to scrape the roof of your mouth. If you are fortunate, it is dipped into a thin broth or a small lump of cheese. There is no sweetness, no fruit unless the season allows, no hint of the luxury you are used to. Chew because you must, not because you savor it. The bread is gritty, for flour is never fully refined. Tiny fragments of husk and even stray stones grinding against your teeth. Your gums ache, your teeth complain, but you swallow, knowing that without it you will have no strength to endure the day. And strength is what you need, for the day stretches ahead like an endless plain. The work is physical, relentless, and repetitive. In the modern world, machines bear the burden of labor. Electricity, engines, computers, they shoulder the weight of tasks, so that your hands rarely blister, your back rarely strains, your muscles rarely cry out. But in the medieval world, everything is muscle. To till the soil, you push the plow, drag the hoe, lift the bucket. To cook a meal, you knead the dough by hand, grind the grain by hand, chop wood for the fire. To fetch water, you carry the bucket yourself, walking again and again to the well. Every simple act requires effort, and every effort leaves its mark. By midday, you would already be exhausted, drenched in sweat if it is summer, shivering if it is winter. But there is no pause, no long break for recovery. If you are lucky, there may be a brief rest to eat again, more bread, perhaps some pottage simmered for hours. It fills your stomach, but it does not satisfy. It is always the same taste, the same texture, the same weight, day after day, until it becomes a dull torment. Compare you find yourself longing not just for the comfort foods of home, but for variety itself, for anything that would remind your tongue that life holds more than this bland cycle. The afternoon drags on, work demanding more of you, even as your strength ebbs away. Your hands blister, crack, bleed. Dirt gathers beneath your fingernails, coats your skin. The smell of sweat never leaves you, for there is no way to wash properly, no soap in reach, no bath waiting at the end of the day. And when the work seems endless, you realize that it truly is. For the medieval life knows no weekend, no holiday except rare feasts tied to the church, and even then duties call. Animals do not feed themselves, fields do not rest, fires do not stoke themselves. Each day is a mirror of the one before, repeating endlessly, demanding endlessly. The mental weight begins to show here. In the modern world, you are used to choice, to leisure, to escape. At any moment, you can step aside and indulge in distraction, music, screens, books, entertainment. In the medieval world, there is no such thing. The only distraction is work of another kind, or perhaps prayer. You find yourself trapped in thought, surrounded by silence that is not silent at all. Your mind aching for stimulation, for relief, for something to take you away from the grind. And yet there is nothing. Your only escape is inside your own head. And even there, the weight of fatigue makes thoughts heavy, slow, and joyless. As the sun lowers, the work shifts but does not stop. Livestock must be brought in, tools put away, households tended. The streets grow darker, shadows long, torches sputtering. In the city, taverns open their doors, laughter spilling into the lanes. But the smell and the press of people drive you back. There is no quiet evening spent in comfort, no glowing screen to wash away the day, no soft couch to collapse into. The medieval night is just another extension of labor, of managing the body's needs, of pushing past the ache. And then, when you finally crawl back to your bed of straw, when you imagine rest, you are met with the same discomforts as before. Lice biting, cold air seeping through cracks, the straw scratching your skin, the smell thick and heavy. Sleep comes in fragments, shallow and unrestful. You wake often, turning, scratching, coughing. And when at last the faint light of dawn appears again, you are no more rested than the night before. Another day begins, the same as the last, the same as the next. And it is here, after only a handful of such days, that a modern human would begin to break not with drama, not with a sudden collapse, but with the slow erosion of spirit. Your body would weaken, Your mind would dull. Your soul would sag beneath the weight of endless discomfort. For in the medieval world, life is not lived, but endured. Every moment is survival, and every breath is bought with effort. A person born into it knows no different, and so they survive. But you, carrying the memory of comfort, of ease, of abundance, cannot. That memory poisons every moment, whispers to you constantly of what is lost, and that whisper is what ensures you would not last.